Sairam to all of you. I would like to start with a small bhajan. Aao, aao, Nandalala. Aao, aao, Nandalala. Sundar Shama Gopala. Sundar Sai Gopala. Aao, aao, Nandalala. Tumhi ho bansi dhari Shama. Tumhi ho bansi dhari Shama. Ayodhyapati Sitarama. Ayodhyapati Sitarama. Parti Baba Karuna Nidha. Parti Baba Karuna Nidha. Makhan Chora Yashoda Bala. Makhan Chora Yashoda Bala. Aao, aao, Nandalala. Om Shri Sai Ram. I would like to offer my humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Mother Sai. At the very outset, I would like to thank Swami for this opportunity to speak on him, which only he can bestow with his will. Today, I invoke Swami's presence for this satsang. To begin with, I have often been asked by one and all as to how my journey with Swami began and how I came to Swami. I am sure each one of us has a unique, interesting incident which brought all of us to Bhagwan. Well, I was lucky and fortunate enough to be born into a family of Sai devotees since the year 1981. When I was a 3-year-old child, my parents brought me to Swami for the first time in the year 1995 to Prashanti Nilayam. That was when I had my first darshan of Swami, and since then it has been an endless saga of love showered by him without any expectation in return. As life progressed and after becoming a devotee, unfortunately in the year 2003, my maternal grandfather, he passed away due to end-stage brain cancer in the year 2003, after which our family, that is my father, mother and me, used to regularly come to Prashanti Nilayam every weekend from the year 2003 to 2004. That was the first time I got accustomed to the routine in Prashanti Nilayam, in the mandir, and how all activities were performed on time, and the punctuality was there for everyone to see and observe the discipline in the mandir especially. And in the mandir, I got a first-hand opportunity to see Swami's love for his students and how he would encourage them, be it in the form of chanting Vedam, singing bhajans, and even performing dramas in the divine presence. Seeing this blossoming relationship between Swami and his students, I too nurtured a desire, and I too decided to pray to him to become his student, as I wanted the same kind of proximity and opportunities to be with him and try to please him. And I prayed from the year 2003 to 2008 for 6 long years. Me and my mother, we had given multiple letters to Swami in 2004 and 2005 in Brindavan and Kodaikanal. But as you all know, Swami has his own timing. We cannot predict what Swami does, and every time whatever Swami does is for our highest good. Swami, for reasons best known to him, he had still not answered our family's prayers and my prayers as well. Then a very interesting incident happened when we attended a function in 2004 in Prashanti Nilayam. My mother was praying intensely from the bottom of her heart to Swami because my application for the 7th standard as well as the 8th standard, it was rejected 2 times. And she was praying to Swami to give some sort of an indication, at least as to when I would get admission in Swami's school, or if ever I would become a student or not. That particular day, mangoes were being distributed in the mandir as prasadam. However, my mother did not receive the prasadam. She was extremely dejected. And when she was still walking out of the hall, suddenly a lady walked up to my mother and gave her a mango, which was the particular prasadam that day. On that mango, brothers and sisters, it was written 2008. This was written in the year 2004. We could not understand in 2004 at that point of time what Swami wanted to convey through the numbers 2008. But exactly 4 years later, I was accepted as a student at the Sri Sathya Sai Higher Secondary School for the biology majors program. That is why Swami says, God's delays are never his denials. This is how I entered Swami's fold, and this is how the journey of love began with Swami. It was an eternal bond from there on. Swami was benevolent enough to grant various chances despite knowing our limitations. I had the unique good fortune of being able to chant Rudram on stage in front of Swami in the Sahasra Chandra Darshana Yagnam and the Veda Purusha Saptaha Jnana Yagna. Also in my 11th standard, I was given the chance to perform the role of Lord Shiva in our 11th class drama, Journey to Sai. Brothers and sisters, after going through the various challenges and vicissitudes of life, I can clearly say today that in many situations of life, if Swami had not guided me, I would have been an aimless wanderer. Now I would like to share with you how Swami decided my career. As you all know, 12th standard and 11th standard is a point of crossroad for any student. So always from my 10th standard, my plan was to join and enroll in the biotechnology course. But Bhagwan had other plans. It was during the month of November 2008 and when Swami's birthday month coincided with the Gram Seva for the first time ever. Swami's birthday month and the Gram Seva coincided in November. Normally the Gram Seva used to happen only in October. But on one particular day, just before Swami's birthday, I got a chance to offer the coconut aarti to Swami at the end of bhajans, morning bhajans. That was one of the privileges for the student, especially when Swami had still given us permission to have bhajans in the bhajan hall. So that day after offering the aarti, I asked Swami, what should I do after my 12th standard? He told me to become a doctor. I further clarified with him, further asking Swami, doctor or doctorate? But he told me to become a medical doctor. This was a big turning point in my life because right from my 10th standard, I wanted to pursue biotechnology as a stream. In fact, Swami had taken letters from me, 60 consecutive letters on 60 consecutive days. This is how much I was actually troubling Swami. If I think of it today, the amount I have troubled Swami for those 60 days, I think everyone take that privilege and take Swami for granted. But sometimes we should also know what to ask Swami. But at that point of time, when I was a student, my career was the most important thing in my life. So, brothers and sisters, I never imagined that I would take up medicine. And in this wonderful journey of medicine, I have seen Swami's role in my life at various points. And when he says something, it definitely comes true. I never thought when Swami said that I should become a doctor, I did not have a clue as to how it would happen. But looking back today, 12 years later, exactly, it has been 14 years later, actually, not 12 years, 14 years later, really whatever Swami says comes true. And really, that is why Swami says, my sankalpa is like Vajra sankalpa. Whatever I say happens. When I will something, it always happens. Another notable experience during my school days was our 12th standard batch 2010 gratitude program in front of Bhagwan. We as a batch, 36 boys we were, and another 36 boys in the commerce department. We, 70 to 80 boys, we were praying to Swami intensely for an opportunity to offer our gratitude program much before our exam dates. But Swami had still not answered our prayers. As the exam dates were approaching, we were even more nervous. And finally, on the 26th of February 2010, Swami sent a message to Principal Sir that they can offer the program and ask them to come for darshan. But that day, what happened in Sai Kulwant Hall, due to some other program, Swami was preoccupied till 7:30 p.m. At 7:35, Swami took Aarti. We as a batch, we were extremely dejected. At that point of time, I don't think anybody would have prayed as much as we were praying. We were praying, please Swami, please. Because if that day we had not done the program, it would have got shifted to after the final board exams. March 2nd was the physics paper. I still remember the sequence. March 2nd was the physics paper. If we had not performed on 26th February and if we had not offered that gratitude program to Swami, we would have to try after our board exams. So at that point of time, at 7:45, even Mr. Shivmani, the most famous percussionist in India, and the Satyasai organization from Fiji and Australia were there. They also wanted to offer a program to Swami. In fact, what Swami did next, brothers and sisters, we will remember for the rest of our lives. At 7:45 p.m., when Mr. Shivmani and Mr. V. Kumar, who was also there as part of the Satyasai Seva Organization Australia team, when they approached Swami, and that time Swami said, my children are going to sing now, please see that program. We were really touched because Swami did not need to do that. But I still remember, we started our gratitude program that day at 8 p.m. Swami, we finished our offering by 9:15 p.m. Swami took Aarti at 9:20 p.m. and retired for the day by 9:30 p.m. He was immensely pleased with our program. And coincidentally, that happened to be the last gratitude program in the physical presence of Swami. What does this tell us, brothers and sisters? If anybody among us, whoever are the participants today who are attending this satsang, if anybody had given us a choice between Mr. Shivmani's program and the students' program, anybody would have chosen a world-famous artist program. But why Swami chose us? Because he cared so much for us. He knew, even though the programs which we were offering were not that high in standard, but our feelings were true for him. And really, even today when I think of it, it is amazing to see how Swami granted a bunch of youngsters a chance to perform a program compared to a world-class artist who was sitting there. I can never forget that day. And it happened to be the last gratitude program in the physical presence of Swami. This is how, brothers and sisters, Swami shaped my life, and these were the kind of experiences which I had. Also, when I left my 12th standard, there was only one regret which I had, that I had not been able to sing a bhajan in the mandir. I had sung songs in front of Swami. In fact, the first time I sang in front of Swami was in 2005 as part of the Satyasai Karnataka Youth Meet. 2006, the Atirudra Mahayagna, the inauguration song. I had sung songs in front of Swami, but I had never sung a bhajan in front of Swami. I must confess today, because we are in the divine presence of Swami, that I was very angry with Swami when I left, and I had decided to give up singing after starting my MBBS course. I started my MBBS in August 2010. I had come out of Parthi by May 31st, 2010, and I had decided to give up singing, brothers and sisters. But in November 2010, on my father's persuasion and insistence, he asked me to accompany him to the Global Akhand Bhajan in Vrindavan Ashram in that month of November 2010. I told my father, see, father, I don't want to sing because Swami has done this to me. He has not given a bhajan chance. He did not give me a chance to be part of the Prashanti Bhajan group. So I do not, if I will come only on one condition to Vrindavan, that if you should not force me to sing, because I had given up that thought once I passed out. My father agreed. He said, okay, you need not sing, you may come, no problem. At least you come, is what my father said. So during the bhajan that day, few elderly devotees who were part of the Vrindavan Bhajan group, I still remember the names, Mr. Gorakhnath and Mr. Uttam Prabhakar. They had seen me sing from a very young age, in fact, right from my 8th standard. And they asked me to sing the 3 bhajans that day in the Sai Krishnan Kalyan Mandap. I knew this was going to happen. I could not refuse because out of respect for them, and they had seen me grow up from a very young age. So that day, I sang the first bhajan I still remember in Sai Krishnan Kalyan Mandap was Antar Jyoti Jalao Sai. The rose fell from Swami's photo that day. And I still remember the other 2 bhajans, Viniti Suno Mere Sai Bhagwan and Sarva Dharma Priya Deva. This is what happened, brothers and sisters. What started that day continued for 8 more years, and I was able to sing in Sai Ramesh Hall and Tri Brindavan also. Swami had seen to that, he had fulfilled even that desire and saw to that I could sing in his mandir. He has the power to make the impossible happen, brothers and sisters. It is not possible that without practice someone sings, but at that point of time, Swami was ready to give me that chance. And finally, he had granted and he had accepted all my prayers, and he had offered me a chance to sing in front of, in fact, till I started my MD course, I was part of the Brindavan Bhajan group. Also, brothers and sisters, from a doctor point of view, from a doctor's point of view, I would like to explain to all of you what it means to be in the medical industry and the healthcare industry, and how Swami has played a role even in that. When one gets into the MD course or any postgraduate course for that matter, especially in healthcare, there is a lot of responsibility to be shouldered as we are postgraduates. We are the backbone of the healthcare department, and we have to observe and monitor the patients and monitor their daily progress. At each time, I have found that Swami's teachings and his protection has been felt on multiple occasions. For an example, I would tell you, when we wait for Swami's darshan for a long time, we develop the quality of patience. Patience is a very important quality when we talk to patients as well. You must be calm, and we cannot afford to be temperamental in front of patients. And Swami always used to say, doctors should speak sweetly and softly to all patients, and this is how a doctor should be. Swami used to say that a lot. All of his teachings, brothers and sisters. I would like to narrate one experience during the COVID-19 first wave in May 2020. In fact, in Davangere, that was the second COVID-19 case which I had diagnosed, because it had started very recently. And then when I diagnosed that case, the lady was diabetic, hypertensive, and she was also a hypothyroidism case. She developed breathlessness suddenly, and according to COVID protocols, we should not perform the cardiopulmonary resuscitation on a COVID positive patient. That was the protocol at that point of time, of which I was unaware, because the disease was new and the protocols were being revised every once a week. So that day, seeing the distress of the patient, my heart reached out to that patient, and I performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation on that COVID-19 positive patient without caring about myself, because I knew I was breaking the protocol, but I had to do it to save the life of that patient, because she was just 44 years old, brothers and sisters. So that day, I gave cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and then after giving the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, unfortunately, we could not revive her. But then I realized that I had broken the protocol, and that is not to be done in a COVID-19 positive patient. And the first thing I did was I spoke to my HOD and my teachers, and I called up my mother, and I said, there is a high chance that I would be infected because I have done the CPR. And it's almost 100% guarantee that someone who does a CPR on a COVID patient also gets infected. So I was genuinely scared, because it was a new disease at that point of time. First month that we were facing that disease, in the first wave especially. My mother was intensely praying to Swami that, when he gives the swab report, Swami, please ensure that the report comes negative. But when I informed my teachers, even my teachers scolded me, and they isolated me in a hotel room for lodging, because no one should come near. Those were the rules that time. So I had given the swab after 5 days, and my COVID report luckily came negative. And till then, all my teachers were so worried, and my parents also were so worried that I might turn out positive. But brothers and sisters, Swami always sees the intention behind any act. When he sees that the intention is pure, he will protect you, brothers and sisters. This has been the experience of my life, and this is what Swami has taught me always. We have to be true to ourselves, especially in this profession, and we have to be sincere from our side. When Swami sees the effort, there is a saying, brothers and sisters, God's grace is in proportion to your exertion. So this is how it has been. And I have been very fortunate that I learned from a very young age from my parents, who are long servitors in the Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization, Karnataka. And they have also got innumerable chances in front of Swami by Swami's grace. And I thank Sister Upasana, and I thank all of you for kindly giving a patient hearing to the talk today. And I would like to conclude today's talk by saying that all of us, let us pray to Swami that we should forever be in close proximity to him, and forever follow all the teachings which he has always taught us. And we should always be forever in his service, and we should not forget him. To forget him is a sin, brothers and sisters. We should always remember that that Swami is in our hearts, and we have to always pray to him to keep us near him. Jai Sai Ram.